Hello, and thank you for watching this brief video for compensation and benefits. We did have an optional meeting today at 12 p.m. on September 1st. However, I didn't have any students that were able to attend, and so I thought I would go ahead and create a short recording for you as well. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at where we've been and where we're going. So as you can see, we have the course overview here. The course is designed for different parts. So part one is setting the stage for strategic compensation, basically talking a little bit about what compensation is, and then the contextual influences on compensation. Then we'll go ahead and move into basis for pay in the future. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about what compensation and benefits really mean. So compensation is any way you pay an employee, whether it's an hourly wage or a salary. It can also pay employees indirectly through vacation time. You might not even have bonuses, different ways you can compensate your employees. The sky's the limit as long as it's legal tender, right? Can't pay our employees in just bread, but that's the expression comes from putting bread on the table, by the way. But that's a whole other topic for another time. But in addition to compensation, we have benefits. And why do we tie compensation and benefits a lot of times together as one? Well, it's really simple. When you think of benefits, the first thing that I think of is healthcare. Healthcare is expensive. Back in the day, a lot of companies used to offer benefits like healthcare for free. Employees didn't even really think about the cost of benefits or anything like that because it was just included for them. However, the cost of healthcare has risen dramatically over the last 10, 20 years. And so what used to be free, now companies offer the employees, but the employee has to pay a portion of that. So a lot of times companies offer benefits free for the employee, but then if they want to add their family members, that cost can be astronomical. So I've seen some places where, I'm free, but if I want to add my family, it's going to cost close to $700 a month just to add my family. So even though benefits doesn't actually pay the employee, it is a cost that some employees or employers will share, or sometimes they pay themselves. My husband actually just started a job, and we were shocked when the company not only paid for his benefits, his health care, but paid for the family as well. And so for us, the healthcare is covered by the company, which is almost unheard of these days. But at any rate, we aren't actually getting a monetary uh, monetary compensation for those benefits, but we're now saving healthcare costs. A lot of money a month on healthcare is now being covered by that company. So it's not direct, but it still certainly helps out. All right, let's go ahead and look at the different chapters where we've been. So we talked first about chapter one, strategic compensation, really just kind of giving you the outline of what compensation is, things like that. It's pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and move into contextual influences on compensation. So what does that even mean, contextual influences? It's a long, big word. It basically means that there are different wage factors. There could be a lot of different things. There could be location is one of those different things. A cashier in rural North Carolina will make a lot less than a cashier in Beverly Hills. Um, Additionally, there are also inter-industry wage differentials. Let's take an HR professional, for instance. You take just an HR generalist. If they are working for, let's say Wake Tech, they might not make the same. I'm not going to say they're going to make more or less. I won't go there, but they will definitely not make the same as if they were working for Google or Amazon, things like that. So it depends on the industry. Education typically isn't known for paying great salaries. Google and Amazon tech companies are. So you can imagine that a HR generalist would make a different pay depending on the industry, right? Okay, and so that's really what this chapter is all about, having you realize that not all things are even and equal. Let's go ahead and look at what is what are your assignments for this week? So I always use this course schedule. I hope you use it too. It's really my checklist. I go in here and actually look to see anytime I create an announcement, I go into the course schedule and this is what I use to create an announcement, is to send reminders. So that way I know what you're working on. This is what I use. It's right over here to the left, course schedule. So this week we have the chapter 2 assessment and the written assignment. Now you can see that the due date is September 5th. However, September 5th is a holiday. So what I would like to do is push that back to September 6th. If I haven't done that yet, I will certainly do that very soon. You're more than welcome to hand that in on Tuesday, September 6th. If you've already done it, well, good for you. Congratulations. You're my kind of peoples, because I can't stand procrastinating. I used to do it a lot when I was younger, but I found out that everything in my life, usually something happens, something's going to go wrong and something's going to come up. And so I try to be as proactive as possible. So that way I don't find myself in a mess come the day that the assignment's due. Let's go ahead and jump into chapter 2, the folder. So of course we talk about the introduction and the expectations, what you need to do for the week. Learning outcomes, we have a couple of videos. We're going to learn about the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, which is an important law. It also talks a little bit about a summary here, and then it talks about exempt status. You will need this in your mini project due next week, but that's okay. Actually, I need to update that. It's not the February, it is next week. We'll talk a little bit about the mini project in just a moment. So your first written assignment is due on the 6th. And what I'd like for you to do is answer these 4 questions. Now, this is not a research paper. All I'm asking you to do is answer these questions. If you want to write 4 different paragraphs, 1 for each question, that's great. If you want to copy and paste the question over into Word and then write your answer right below it, that's great too. I actually find that is easier for you to remain focused on the question at hand. That way you answer all the questions within that area. It's also easy for me to grade. I'll be honest, when students copy and paste it over and they answer the question that they need to right there, I can focus in just in that area and make sure that you're covering all the things that you need to cover. So it's a win-win for both of us. Please feel free to copy and paste. All right. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at those questions. First of all, it talks about 3 main elements of a compensation system. First, you have internal consistency, making sure you're paying everyone consistently within certain groups or jobs categories. You have market competitiveness. Are you paying your salaries? Are they competitive to the market? Are they over market or are they under market? And then last, recognizing employee contribution, basically paying for performance or merit pay. Right. So what I'd like for you to do is read about those in chapter 1. You can see right here, I have chapter 1 kind of highlighted there for you. Chapter 1, go ahead and reread those, reread that information, and then talk to me a little bit or discuss if they're equally important. Do you believe one is more important than the other? Do they differ as far as the importance? Now, there is no right or wrong answer here, just what well-supported one, just what you think. What's the most important? What's the least important? And then just give your rationale, making sure that you give me why you think maybe market competitiveness is the most important, or why you think recognizing employee contribution is the most important, or being consistent, because if you're not consistent, that could lead to issues, right? So just give me your rationale on what is the most important and why. Making sure you're answering all of those questions. Number 2 looks at the differences and similarities between a person-focused pay, incentive pay, and merit pay. So you'll read about that in the chapters as well. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of each? And then also explain the role of performance and why it matters in merit programs. Now, if you look at the definition of merit pay, you'll connect the dots, hopefully connect those dots as to why performance matters, since merit pay has to do with one's performance, hint, hint, but you'll go ahead and read about that. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 3. So currently the federal minimum wage is $7.25. Now it could be higher in some cities. It depends on the state or the city, but the federal minimum wage is $7.25. And so pre-COVID, this was a really relevant question pre-COVID. Should the federal government raise the minimum wage? Why or why not? How will this impact businesses, consumers, all of that information? I still want you to think about that, but I will tell you that I come across a lot of minimum wage jobs that are no longer paying minimum wage. I see signs all the time paying well above minimum wage these days because the labor market is a tough one right now, right? So I've seen uh, positions, paying $15-20 an hour that typically used to pay $7.25 before COVID. It's kind of a running joke with some teachers. Well, it's not really a joke, but let's say our teachers, our K through 12 teachers. I won't talk about teachers at Wake Tech, but I will speak of our valued teachers that are teaching our kids. The standards, I don't want to say the standard discussion right now as far as pay is that a lot of teachers can make more money working, at Chick-fil-A or Walmart than they can with the high level of degrees that they have, keeping in mind that a lot of teachers have not only bachelor's degrees, but they have master's degrees in areas such as chemistry and math, and they're very smart individuals, and they can make more money elsewhere than they can at teaching. And so that's kind of why a lot of teachers, there's a teacher shortage going on because teachers are overworked and underpaid. And so that's just one of those things that I think we need to think about, not only because it's happening right now in our society, but we are in a compensation class. So maybe I can think about ways to improve teacher salaries here in North Carolina. All right, the last question is, I want you to read the FLSA fact sheet. And then it talks a little bit about when it's acceptable to classify employees exempt from overtime. So what does exempt from overtime mean? Exempt from overtime means salary. Very simple. Salary. Exempt equals salary. Not exempt or non-exempt equals hourly. So when is it acceptable to pay someone a salary? Can you pay anyone a salary? Or are there only certain types of positions that you can pay a salary? And then what are the advantages to classify employees as salary? So explain your rationale. I will give you a hint. It is against the law to pay everyone a salary. Some positions require an hourly wage. And you'll read about that in the fact sheet. Now, this gives you a heads up for next week's assignment. So start in on the FLSA fact sheet, learn a little bit about that this week. Next week, you'll have to learn a little bit more for your mini project. So let's go ahead and wrap up this written assignment. Number 1, it is due again on September 6th. It's a Tuesday. There should be 4 separate paragraphs. Feel free to copy and paste your questions over there. I want to go ahead and take a look at your mini project. So you can find your mini project in your lessons in a couple different areas. So you can scroll all the way down at the bottom. You'll find a course project when they're due here. You'll also find them in the weekly chapters as well. So when we go here next week, chapter 3, you'll scroll down and you'll find a link to the mini project. So you shouldn't miss it. So here is the first mini project that is due September 12th. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Again, we're talking about FLSA, exempt and non-exempt. I give you 2 weeks to learn this information because it can be a little bit confusing, understanding who you can pay an hourly wage to who you can pay a salary wage to. So I will tell you that there is no law that says you have to pay only salary. If a company wants to pay their employees hourly, they're allowed to do so. Even the CEO can be paid hourly if they want. So there is no law that says you have to pay a salary. You are more than welcome to pay your employees an hourly wage. However, the opposite is not true, meaning it is against the law to pay certain positions a salary. So some positions are allowed to be paid salary, like teachers, for instance. Teachers are allowed to be paid salary. But there are positions that are not allowed to be paid salary. They have to be paid hourly. And you'll read about those positions on that fact sheet. So what you're to do for this mini project is to really understand the difference between salary and non-salary jobs, or exempt and non-exempt jobs. Exempt equals salary, non-exempt equals hourly. And so a lot of times when I was first learning these terms years ago, I would replace the word exempt with salary, and I would replace the non-exempt with hourly. It just made it easier for my mind to process the information. So again, understanding the difference between a salary and an hourly employee, exempt or non-exempt. So when you pull up the mini project, you can go right here, look at the attached file. It gives you the background and it gives you the assignment. Eventually it does. You can see I'm working on an article about quiet quitting in the background. I do write articles and things for LinkedIn from time to time. I don't know if you've heard of quiet quitting, but I'm writing an article about quiet quitting. Once I'm done with that article, I will share that with you if you're interested. But it's a term that confused me a little bit when I first heard it, because to me, quiet quitting, and I'm going off on a tangent here, but quiet quitting is, I think, someone quitting their job, but quietly doing so, maybe just kind of eventually leaving early, coming in late until where the point they don't show up anymore. However, that's not the case. Quiet quitting is actually something completely different. And so I'm voicing my opinion on why are we calling it quiet quitting when it's really not quiet quitting. It's really called setting boundaries and only doing what you're supposed to do and not other things. But at any rate, I digress. Let's go ahead and take a look at this particular mini project. Let's get back on track. So here we have compensation and benefits, your first mini project. So what I'd like for you to do is look at the scenario. And for each of the different positions, you have 6 of them. I want you to state if they're hourly or non-exempt or salary exempt. So all of these positions pay at least a certain wage, $40,000 annually. And so what you're to do for part 1, you can go ahead and read over this information. And then you'll see part 1 is I want you to list the positions and determine if they're exempt or non-exempt. And that's worth 25 points. So it's pretty straightforward. Just write the position. Business development manager. Are they exempt or non-exempt? Administrative assistant. Are they exempt or non-exempt? That's part 1. Part 2 is then to write a letter to the president that first describes a brief summary of overtime law. So tell me a little bit about FLSA and what the overtime law states. Make sure that you cite your source if you use it. If you use your source from somewhere, hint, hint. I know it's a letter to your president, and you're certainly not going to typically be citing your sources in that scenario, but remember, this is an assignment for college, so you will have to cite that source. But the second thing you're going to do is you're going to list which position should be paid overtime and which one should not. And for those who are exempt from overtime, what made you come to that conclusion? Why do you think that position is allowed to be paid salary? So that part is worth 50 points. All right. Well, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm looking forward to reading your assignments and reading your written assignment that's due this week, and then your mini assignment that's worth your mini project due next week. I do see that I changed the point system to 100 points here. I thought I did. So I must have done 75 last semester. I change it from time to time. So I'll go ahead and recreate. I'll probably do maybe like a 30-70. I think a 30-70 is good. So I'll make the first part 30 points, and then that second part will be worth 70 points because that second part is much more important, has a lot more detail in there. So we'll go ahead and look at that then. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And again, have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you.